Hello, everyone. Welcome to Baking with Beth, our holiday cooking special, holiday cookie special. We are here tonight to go over some of the cookies that Beth, our public services librarian, has recommended for us. Before we get started, this program will wrap up our programming for the year. So you're going to check our website on phlibrary.org to make sure you note that our closings for the holidays, of course, and also for any of our programs in January are online, so are ready to go. So you can check our events on phlibrary.org for next month, January, to sign up for any of our future programs. The building is closed right now, but we are doing our curbside services. You order the books and you can pull up curbside to pick them up, and you can also do curbside scanning, printing, and faxing as well. And we also have all of our digital collection available for all of our Palos Heights residents, Palos Heights card holders. You can download ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, movies, and more, online resources for homework. So check out our website, phlibrary.org again. And with your Palos Heights Library card, you can do many things, even though the building is closed. So just keep that in mind. But again, I want to welcome you to tonight's program, Baking with Beth. As most of you know, I am not Beth. My name is Janine. I'm with Head of Public Services at the Palos Heights Library. And sadly, Beth couldn't be with us tonight. She unfortunately had a death in her family, and she was not able to be here. But she did want us to go ahead with the program, and she's already baked all of the cookies, and she came up with all her recipes. So we're going to carry on for her, okay? So just as you know, I am not a pro. I'm not a professional baker. I've been doing it for a while, but Beth has left us her recipes and her cooking tips and all the phases of what we're going to go through tonight. So we're going to show you what we can hear. And this is a great program for whether you're a beginner, wanting to, you don't know how to bake at all, or for those of us out there who have been baking for many years and you just may be looking for a few tips. I know when we have a lot of our baking or our cooking programs, like when we had Chef Susan here last month with our fall soups, I'm always learning some new tips from somebody. So, for even those of you who have had a lot of baking experience, maybe you'll learn something tonight, okay? But the first thing we'll get started with, so for tonight, let me just give you a little background in this program. This time of year is like one of our favorite times of year here at the library, because we know that Beth is going to come in with a tray of cookies, and she is a superb baker. And it's like one of our favorite days when she does bring her cookies in. And that's how this program came to be. So what she came up with tonight are 5 of the most requested cookie recipes that she gets to bake. And we'll be going over, and you should have received these recipes in an email, probably yesterday or today. And you will have 5 recipes and a sheet of cooking, one paper just of her cooking tips. So if you didn't get those and you'd like to, just send us your email in the chat box. And Catherine is behind the camera there. She's helping out tonight, as she always does. I couldn't do this without her. But if you send her your email, she'll get you those recipes tonight as well, okay? So tonight, we're going to be making 5 recipes: the maple pecan shortbreads, the peanut butter blossoms, the rum print cookies, the cranberry orange cookies, and the chocolate dipped shortbreads. Okay, so we have them displayed here for you. This is our finished product, and we're going to take you to the steps that will get you to there. Okay, but let's start with some baking tips that Beth has come up for us. First of all, equipment, right? If you have the best equipment, you can make anything, right? That's what all the builders say. So we're going to start with baking sheets. That's the first tip Beth has for us, is to use a baking sheet that has no sides, okay? You see how this one is flat on the side? This one has one edge right here, and that's really just a lip that we can handle the cookie sheet with. This will allow for equal or even baking throughout the cookie sheet, okay? So that's one of her tips. Also, while we're baking, she says, make sure your baking sheets cool off between each batch, okay? So you got the cookie sheet out of the oven, you just took the cookies off. You don't want to sit here and start loading up cold dough on a hot tray, okay? It's going to start par baking it, and it's going to mess up the bake. So what she does, because she says she lives in works in a small kitchen, once she unloads the baking sheet, she just kind of puts it over by the sink, lets it cool there, and then she has another one ready, and she's at room temperature, and she's putting the dough onto a cookie sheet that's at room temperature. Okay, so that's one of her baking tips. Okay, let's talk ingredients. For your butter, she wants you to use the best butter you can. Of course, these are holiday cookies. These are cookies you might be giving away as gifts. You want to have them the best that they can be. So she likes to use Land O'Lakes butter for hers, especially in recipes where butter is the major ingredient, like your spritz cookies, your shortbreads, or even your butter cookies. So she likes to use Land O'Lakes, and she'll even use some European brands as well. Also, if the recipe requires something to be room temperature, you really need to follow that in the recipe. So if they ask for butter to be room temperature or the eggs to be at room temperature, you really want to make sure you do that, because that's going to affect how things mix together while you're making your batter or your doughs. So start with things at room temperature if that's what they requested. Also, regarding baking times, Beth suggests that you watch the cookies carefully. Even though the recipe might say, 10 to 12 minutes, she wants you checking the cookies very carefully, because a lot of high sugar content in many of these cookies, and that does tend to can burn fast. Also, everybody's oven's a little bit different. They're all a little bit temperamental, right? You might have a hot spot in your oven or whatever, or tends to blink out on you. You kind of know these things. So keep an eye on the baking time. Even though the recipe says one thing, keep a close eye on it. Also, back to ingredients, I almost forgot about the vanilla. Beth also is very particular about her vanilla. She will not use anything imitation, right? So what her favorite brand of vanilla is the Nielsen Massey vanilla. And it gets kind of expensive, but this is the best quality that you can get. And it does make a difference. I know that bottle at Sur La Table can cost about $55. It's very expensive right now, especially with the shortage that we've had with the vanilla bean lately. But Beth says she could find this brand at Home Goods and TJ Maxx. So she does her shopping for the good quality things there. Also, and same with the orange extract, the different things that you add to your ingredients, you want to make sure you use the best ones. And fresh. If you haven't used your baking soda in 9 months, it's time to get some fresh stuff before you start, okay? Also, regarding salt in a recipe, she recommends you use all the recommended salt that's requested in your recipe. Of course, unless you have a diet restriction. Baking is very much a chemical, like chemistry. The salt is reacting with the baking soda and the baking powder to make all this magical goodness. So you really want to watch if it's requested salt, you need to put it in there unless you have a dietary restriction. Also, a baking tip for you beginners out there is when you're looking at a recipe, you want to make sure you read through it first before you start pulling out all the ingredients and start making your big mess in your kitchen, because some of these recipes, especially the Christmas cookie recipes, they are in stages. Some of these ask for you to, once you make this dough, which is really quick to make, you got to set it aside in the refrigerator for an hour at least, or sometimes overnight even. So that one recipe you wanted to make when you're going out to someone's house tonight, it's not going to happen. So you want to make sure you read through the recipe, make sure you have all the ingredients, and make sure if there's stages, that's not the cookie you're going to need to make that night, if you're going to get outside, going to some party or whatever. Parchment paper. I love this thing, okay? I used to bake just regular cookie sheets, I didn't know about parchment paper at one point in my life. And then somebody introduced me to it, and now I don't go home without it. So parchment paper, it is not wax paper, folks, and you cannot substitute wax paper for that. So please don't do that. Parchment paper is something different. Parchment paper is the paper you rip out and you line your baking sheets with it. Just like I did here. And you put it right on your cookie sheet, and you put the dough right on there, and you put that in the oven and you bake it. And the paper does not burn or anything like that. But it's such an easy cleanup, and the cookies will come right off of the baking. I don't know what it is. It's like magic. So I can't explain it to you, but it's wonderful. So Beth uses parchment paper. I use it now. I can't believe I never used it before. So if you can get it, you can get that in your grocery stores, and it's wonderful. Food coloring. She recommends a gel food coloring because it gets a nice deep color without adding too much liquid or a separate flavor. Keep that in mind. And with sugar cookie dough, she recommends that you really chill that dough. If it says an hour or overnight, make sure it's very cold when you get started with it, because you got to keep in mind when you're rolling dough between your hands, your body temperature is going to heat up that dough, and it can turn into a sticky mess and kind of ruin your thing. So make sure you chill that dough. She also talks about how she freezes her cookie dough for up to 3 months after she makes it. She wraps it really well. You can put it in the freezer, and it's kind of nice. You can make it ahead of time and just pull it out when you're ready to start baking. Another tool that she loves is this little guy. And this is a spatula she uses to remove the cookies from the cookie sheet. This is actually a fish spatula, and she likes it because it has a very thin edge to it. And she likes it because it's big. If you notice, she can just, when you're taking the cookies off the sheet, she can load up a couple of cookies at a time when she's using this. So she, it is a fish spatula, but she likes to use it because it has a very thin edge, and it's fairly nice to get a cookie off the cookie sheet without destroying the cookie. Also, cooling your cookies, she likes to use wire racks like this guy, okay? There's some cookie racks. I mean, I have one that stacks on top of each other, and there's all sorts of kind. But you want it with the thin wires so that it can cool evenly and quickly, so you can eat them faster, right? Okay, and also storing cookies. She says she likes to store cookies like these in her tin. They tend to keep crisper in tins than in plastic. So that's that. Also, when Beth is thinking about creating a cookie plate for the holidays, she likes to pack the plate with like 5 to 6 cookies, and she likes to have one with nuts. Of course, make sure nobody has allergies, right? You don't want to hurt anybody. One with chocolate, a sugar or a spritz cookie, 1 spice, 1 cookie with fruit, or 1 with mint or peppermint. And of course, when you're packing peppermint or peanut butter together, you probably want to use your little cookie papers or separate them a little, because you don't want to kind of mix those flavors together. But you kind of get the idea that you get a nice balanced platter of cookies and to make a nice presentation. So those are some of the tips that Beth had shared with us tonight. And we probably will have some other tips when we start the different recipes. So let's get started, huh? We're going to start with our first recipe tonight is the maple pecan shortbread squares. Now, I'm going to start with the first thing you want to look at when you look at a recipe is what are the things you need to prepare before you get started. Well, the butter needs to be softened. So you need to get that butter out on the counters before you start making it. And chopping the nuts, okay? This is asked for chopped nuts, and you want to get that done so when you're ready to start baking, you have everything done. Beth had purchased these nuts here. They're just like diamonds, already diced walnuts. But she even says that this size is a bit too big for her still. She will actually, take something like this and chop them up smaller because she just likes it smaller on her cookies. I actually will buy like pecans in big bags. I'll go to Costco and they'll have the big bags, and I'll bring them home, and they're like the whole pecans, but I'll take like half of them, I'll dump them into a food processor and just grind up, chop them very finely in large amounts, put them in bags and put them in the freezer. So when I come up with a recipe like this, they need chopped nuts. So I'm like, oh, I already have my nuts all chopped, I'm all ready. So, and also this recipe calls for maple syrup. Beth likes to use only the real stuff. And she doesn't like to use imitation stuff, as she's already told us. All right, so for this recipe, Beth has already made the base to this. She combined the flour and 1/3 of the cup of the brown sugar, and mixed softened and dough until the butter until it was a dough, and then she pressed it in the bottom of an 8x8 pan and had baked it already. Okay, so while this was baking, she said to go ahead and make the topping. The topping consists of 1 egg, which we already have here. It's already done. I'm going to put that in there. We have the brown sugar. It's all measured out. She was so nice to do this for us. And this is a light brown sugar. And the nuts. And again, these are nuts that she would typically chop a little bit smaller, but we're going to throw those in there. These are pecans. And then the 3 tablespoons of the maple syrup. And we're going to just pour that all in. So while you have pressed this in the pan and it's all flat and even, and you put that in the oven, it's baking, you're going to go ahead and mix this all together. Can you see that, Catherine?
Yeah, tilt it a little bit more.
Tilt
There
it?
you go.
Okay, so you see it becomes more like a, I don't know, it looks like a pecan pie almost, the filling for a pecan pie. And you just mix it together. Okay, and so once the bottom, the shortbread is done, you take it out and let it cool or it doesn't even have to cool actually. I could just go ahead and I'm going to pour this on top now. Can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've never done a baking program before, and neither has Catherine. So this is the first time for all of us. So we're trying to get the best angle for you. So I'm hoping this is working out for you folks. So I'm going to let me throw this in the sink. I kind of wish I had a chair like this in my kitchen, because now I can just go like this and throw things around. Kind of nice. But can you see that, Catherine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now the oven's been preheated. We've had this oven on, and I know the temperature is 350. See it right there. It's very important to preheat your oven, folks. For experienced bakers, you know that. For the new people, you want to make sure the oven is at the right temperature. Otherwise, it does a weird makes weird things happen to your cookies. Okay, so let's get this in the oven. Catherine, you're going to set the timer, right?
That's right.
For 12 to 15 minutes. Okay, we'll check it at 12 minutes because I don't know this oven. I've never baked in it before, so I'm going to keep a close eye on that. I'm going to take Beth's hint and keep a close eye on it. So you can't smell how wonderful that smells right now. I smell maple and butter, and that's all kind of goodness there.
It smells great.
So while that's baking, we're going to move on to our next cookie. We have a cranberry orange cookie. This is one of my favorites of Beth's. This is it right here. This little guy, little thin disc of a paradise. So let me get the ingredients for everything. We've got the dough. Beth already pre-made the dough. So we'll talk a little bit about the making of it and what else we need. So what do we do when we look at the recipe, right, folks? We're going to read everything. And this one has a little weird typo in it. It says 1 large land egg. Just disregard. It's just a regular egg. So while I'm reading this, I said, I'm going to need some orange zest. So I'm going to need a zest an orange. So this is what we call a microplaner. This has a very rough edge. For those of you not familiar with it, this is where you can take an orange. I don't have an orange with me, and you're going to just scrape it, and you're going to get the outside color till you get to the whiteness under the orange. And as you're scraping it, the zest part collects underneath here, and that's what you're going to measure with a teaspoon. And this has a half a teaspoon at the top and a teaspoon at the bottom. So it's almost about a whole orange. It depends on the size of the orange. And that gives it great flavor and great taste. So that's when they say orange zest. Go ahead and do that ahead before you get started. Get that zested up. You're also going to need dried cranberries that are going to be diced and chopped. And you want to dice those small. And the butter needs to be softened. So again, when you read your recipe ahead of time, you want to prepare everything, get things ready so that when it's good to go, you're all good to throw things together. Beth also says you can make this recipe with or without nuts. We are not going to make it with nuts tonight. I think believes she puts macadamia nuts in there, which do taste good. She said you can also substitute lemon instead of the orange, and add chopped white chocolate instead of cranberry. So that makes a completely different cookie, but it also sounds very good. Okay. So again, this is what we are aiming to make this little cookie here. And we're going to start with, you know, how you regularly do. Make sure you preheat your oven. And we're going to first make the orange sugar. Okay, orange sugar is where we're going to roll the dough in once we're done. And what we've done is she's measured a quarter cup of sugar, and then we've taken that half a teaspoon of the orange zest. You remember we talked about that? And oh my God, you could just smell the orange right now. And this is what we're going to need to roll the dough in later. So we make this first. We got that off to the side. And so for the cookie dough itself, you're going to combine the sugars together and then add your egg and get it nice and creamy. And you're going to add your egg and 1 teaspoon of the orange zest and mix until it's combined. Then you add your flour, baking powder, and soda, baking soda, beat it at a low speed, and add the cranberries at the end. And then you're going to get a dough that looks like this, okay? And then you're going to take in 1-inch balls, create 1-inch balls, and you can do it in other ways. You can take one, just pinch off some dough and roll it in your hands. Make sure your hands are clean, of course. And you're going to make little shapes like this. Now, Beth has one of her favorite tools is this cookie scoop right here. And what she does is she just uses this scoop and it forms the perfect little ball, right? And she's going to put them on the parchment paper that's on her cookie sheet, just like I did here. But when you use a tool like this, why she likes it is because everything becomes uniform. And you need your cookies to be uniform so that they can bake evenly. Otherwise, if you make a big one and a small one, the small ones are going to get burnt and dried out. The big ones are still going to be raw inside. So it's important that each shape is close to the same size. Okay. So once you make your cookie balls, the dough balls, you're going to roll them in the orange sugar like we talked about. Remember this orange sugar we just created, and it smells so good. So you're going to roll them in sugar, put them on your parchment paper on your cookie sheet. You're going to fill the sheet with that. And then she takes, this is the glass, and she uses this bottom, or you can use any type of thing that you think will press the cookie evenly. And you're going to press the cookie to this shape here, okay? This is a nice flat surface, and so what you have is these cookies become all uniform shaped, okay? And if you look on the cookie sheet, the finished product, they look like they're store-bought cookies. They're all the same size. And then, of course, these are things you're going to put in the oven, and we're going to bake them. And when they're finished, this is your end product right here, okay? Can you see that, Catherine?
Mm-hmm. Let me just give a little zoom.
Yeah.
There you go.
So you see the cranberries, you taste the orange. It's such a fresh, refresh, and lots of butter. It's just wonderful. And of course, I want to say, if you have any questions about things as we go along, go ahead and enter those in the chat or in the Q&A, and Catherine can read off those questions as we go along. But if we don't have any questions, we're going to move on to the next recipe, okay? So let me put these back. Our next recipe is our peanut butter blossoms, okay? Now, these are the cookies that many of you are familiar with, right? Many people make them, but they got to be made right. It's a perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate. And you notice the ratio of the dough to the little Hershey Kiss, right? We don't have a lot of dough hanging over. It's just the perfect amount. So we're going to talk about this. Let me put this orange sugar away because we're going to be dealing with peanut butter now. So let me grab all the things for the peanut butter. We've got our dough and our chocolate.
We had a suggestion for the cookies. If you dip the base of the glass in the sugar, it would be easier to depress the cookie.
That's right. And that's Beth. That is on Beth's tips. I didn't follow Beth's tip. So thank you for reminding me. That's right. Beth told me to dip this in sugar and then to do that to the cookie and it won't stick. So thank you, whoever shared that with us. Mm-hmm. You're keeping to Beth's tips. So I appreciate that. Yeah, if you folks have one of your favorite cookies you'd like to share with us too, please do. Okay, So we're talking about the peanut butter blossoms. Okay, the first thing Beth says, if you can get somebody to unpeel the Hershey Kisses for you, please do that. She does a lot of baking with her niece, or did when her niece was little. They still bake together, don't they, Catherine?
They do, yeah.
So she started a nice tradition with her niece. And so she said that was always her niece's job. She would dump the Hershey Kisses with all wrapped in foil in front of her niece, and her niece would be the one to unwrap them. I did the same thing with my girls when they were young. That was their job. Of course, they got to sneak a couple if they, but you really do need these all unwrapped and ready to go, because once you're putting these once they're ready to go on the cookies, they need to be ready to go. Another tip is the peanut butter. Beth says just to use the Skippy or the Jif peanut butter, because those work the best. The natural peanut butter stuff doesn't quite work as well as the Skippy or Jif does. So, and also, we're going to talk about the perfect time when to pull these cookies out of the oven to put the chocolate kiss in them. At this point, this is what the cookies are going to look like on the cookie sheet when you pull them out. They're just starting to crack. They're not. This is about 8 minutes in the oven at this point, and they bake at 10 minutes to 12. So they're still not quite finished, but they're starting to crack. This is the point where you put the kiss in, so that it's not going to fall out. You know, sometimes you get those cookies and the kiss falls out. You're left with just a peanut butter cookie. So we'll talk more about that when we get to it. Also, this dough is, Beth is talking about, this dough is great to double. If you want to double a batch, it's a good thing to do. And it's also very easy to freeze, but you want to make sure you wrap it really well, because sometimes it'll dry out if you don't wrap it well and try to freeze it. Okay, so those are other tips. So again, we're going to read through the recipe, right, folks? So what do we need? Oh, we need Hershey Kisses. Well, let's get those things unwrapped. The butter needs to be softened, okay? So the dough is very simple. You're going to sift the flour, baking soda, and salt together. And if it says to sift stuff, you got to do it, okay? So you can't cut that out. That's just going to affect the quality of the cookie later. Then you're going to add your brown sugars and the white sugar and the cream until fluffy. Add your egg and vanilla. And then you're going to start shaping this. So the dough is made. This is what the dough looks like. Okay. And then I took just two and I started rolling them. And again, you can use your trusty little scraper here like Beth does and scrape out. And you just want them to be uniform. If you don't have a cookie scraper, a cookie ball or thing like that, you can't just roll it up. I know when I was doing this with our girls, I would have the first one. I said, okay, this is it. This is what everything has. So you just, make sure they're all the size. They would just check, is that the right size? And then they continue to do that. Because again, the cookies need to be the same size. You don't, otherwise things start baking at weird shapes and times and they all start looking strange. So once you roll your cookies, you're going to roll the dough. You're going to roll it in sugar, and you're going to put it on the cookie sheet. Okay. Right. And then just like so. And then it's going to go into the oven for 8 minutes at 375. Notice that baking temperature is a little different. No, it's not the 350 normal. Okay. So you're going to put them in for 8 minutes. And then when they start to look like this, okay, so let me take these guys off. So let's pretend we put them in the oven and they already baked. At this point, this is the point where you're going to put the kiss in now. These are hard because they've been sitting out, but your cookie's going to be very soft and you'll be able to push the kiss in. And if you got a tray of 30 cookies, you need to have all those kisses ready so you can get them on there pretty quick, okay? So that's how you do it. Put them back in the oven for another 2 to 3 minutes, and then take them out, and then you're going to have your peanut butter blossom goodness right here, okay? All right, any questions?
I don't think we've got any questions yet.
Okay. All right, so no questions, we'll move on. We're going to go to the rum print cookies now, okay? Rum print is kind of a play on words of the thumbprint cookie, okay? All right, so but this is a recipe Beth got from the Chicago Tribune from 1994.
It's the 12-minute timer.
Oh, the timer just went off for our maple. So, okay.
We
hold
even
on,
have a
Rum.
comment. Where are those maple cookies?
Okay, Rum friends, hang on. We've got some business to tend to, and I don't have a hot pad. Okay, so let's take a look in this oven. Ooh. And it is not ready at all. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's pretty wet in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so the topping is still sloshing around in there, so let's put it on for another 3 minutes,
Yeah.
okay? All right. So let's keep tabs on that one, Catherine.
Okay.
The alarm startled both of us, like, what's that for? Okay, we forgot we had something in the oven. Okay. See, that's why you need a timer. Okay, back to the rum prints. This is a recipe Beth got from the Chicago Tribune back in 1994, and she likes these little guys. These are the rum prints right here. We're talking about this little cookie. It's a cookie that starts off like this, and it has, you put your thumbprint in there to make a little well in the center, and then you fill it with this frosting that's flavored with rum, and then she dusts it with nutmeg, and so that's a delicious bite there. So again, the dough doubles very easily, so if you want to make a whole bunch of those. And she talks about fresh nutmeg. If you have fresh nutmeg, use it. And what is the nutmeg we're talking about? This is what a real nutmeg looks like, okay? It looks like a nut. And you're going to take the trusty microplaner we talked about earlier, and you're going to just, I don't know if you can see, I'm going to just do this on a plain white plate so you can see that it is actually happening. Do you see this? I'm going to just take it on the microplaner and rub it across, and you see it's very hard. This is a very hard nut, but can you see the nut is dusted? This is all nutmeg. Now, for those of you who don't have the real nutmeg, oh my God, this smells so good. It does come already in a jar that from the grocery stores, and you would just sprinkle it on the top. But if you can get real nutmeg, do so. It makes, oh my God, such a big difference. Okay, so that's the nutmeg. Also, the butter is, make sure your butter is very soft for this recipe. She said it almost looks like it wants to separate when it's mixing, but don't worry about that. And for the thumbprint, when you make the thumbprint, you want to make sure you make it a very deep thumbprint, a very firm thumbprint like this. We'll talk about that in a minute. And she said that when you make this frosting, it looks like this is not going to be enough. She said, don't worry, it'll be just fine. Okay, so some of the things to prepare for as we read through the recipe first before we start anything. Soften the butter, make sure the egg's at room temperature, you're going to expect to refrigerate the dough for 1 hour. So this is one of those stages. This cookies with stages in it. Okay, so she's already mixed the dough. Of course, she beat the butter, and she beat in the sugar with it. And it says beat in the egg and vanilla, and then it says stir. For those of you not familiar with recipes, there's a difference between when they say beat or mix to stir. Stir means you're actually going to be taking just like a wooden spoon or a spatula, and you're going to be stirring by hand, okay? There's a big difference. So you got to pay attention to those words. So you're going to stir in the flour and the fresh nutmeg that you just,
that was 3 more minutes.
Time out. We got to check the maple. Let's see what these guys are doing. Again, this is an oven I'm not familiar with. It hasn't been used in a while, so let's check. We'll see. And again, it is still soupy. Okay. Let's go for another couple of minutes on that one. Okay. We'll do 2 more, and maybe it'll set up when we're done, before we're done. Okay, Catherine's keeping charge of the timing. Okay. All right. Sorry, back to the rum prints. Okay, so this is what the dough looks like. And again, it's one of those that I just pinched off some and I rolled it. Of course, you can do Beth's cookie thing, and it comes off in a perfect little dough ball. Again, so that they're all uniform. And then you put them on the sheet. And you're going to press down with your thumb like I did here. Let me clear this out. Done with those. So we've got them on the cookie sheet, and you can use your thumb like I did, and you press down and you press it firmly down, because when they bake, it's going to rise up, and they're going to, she started off very firm, but then they rise up, and it's not as big as you thought it would be. But Beth also uses, she has this 1/4 inch teaspoon. She uses that sometimes, and it makes the perfect little hole for that. Okay. So you got that? All right, and so you just make the holes, the wells in with your thumbprints, and then you're going to put those in the oven and bake them. Okay. And they're going to come out like this, right? So I'm going to put this dough aside, because we're going to talk about the frosting now. Okay. So let me just. Okay, I wouldn't do this in real life. I would not keep reusing this for different cookies. Okay, this is just for show today. All right, so we get the frosting now. So the frosting, she mixed a cup of confection sugar, powdered sugar we call it, unsalted butter. So there's a difference there as well. If you have salted butter, you can use it, but if they ask you not to use it, then try to get that. But if that's the only thing in your fridge and you need to make these cookies, it's okay to do it. And then the 1 teaspoon of rum extract or to taste. Okay. And so you make this frosting until it's nice and soft. You mix it together. And she said you can put that in a pastry bag and pipe it into the cookie. But she also just takes this little guy, this little tool that she likes to use, and she will just put it in the cookie. Oops, not like that, like that. She'll do a couple of those. Oh my God. Hers probably don't do that. Okay. And then you have your cookies, and then we're going to dust it with nutmeg, fresh nutmeg. Okay, can you see that? It smells really good in here, folks. I wish you could smell how good it smells. Okay, so that's our thumbprints, okay, our rum prints. Any questions on that?
No questions yet.
Okay, great. So while we're, before we even get started again, I'm going to just check on that maple thing behind me so it doesn't interrupt our next cookie. Okay, I'm going to take this out now and let it set. I'm gonna let that set before we show you what it looks like. And she does say to, the recipe calls for us to, I'm not gonna touch this pan, it's very hot, to cut around the edges, to just edge it so that it's easier. And what I'm doing, I'm just taking this tool and I'm just kind of like loosening the edges of it around me so that it'll be easier to get it out of the pan. But the maple pecan bars will look like this when we're finished. And it does have a kind of the crust, the look of a pecan pie, if you guys have seen those, with the shortbread base. These are divine. These are just delicious. So that's what it will look like once we're gonna let it set, get to room temperature, and you cut it, and it's just wonderful. Okay, so that's the maple pecan shortbreads all finished. Okay, so we're on our last cookie tonight, folks, and that's the chocolate dip shortbreads. All right, and that's these guys right here. We have one, the chocolate dip is just plain, or Beth, you could put nuts on the one side, or you can decorate it with holiday sprinkles. Beth also said you could just crush up a candy cane and, take a candy cane and take a rolling pin and smash them in a bag and then sprinkle that on the chocolate, and that's like a delicious peppermint chocolate flavor. So these are a very versatile cookie, okay? And not to mention just delicious, okay? Who does not like a shortbread, right? So let's talk about what we're gonna need. Let me grab the dough, it's right behind me. We've got it here, and we need the chocolate. Oh my gosh, it's frozen. Okay, well, this is a good thing. We're going to show you a little lesson here. Okay, so first we're going to go look through the recipe again, right? And so we need nuts that are chopped. So you're going to chop your nuts up first, and the butter needs to be softened. Okay. Now Beth says while she's making this, the dough part, you want to scrape the bowl frequently because it gets kind of sticky, okay? But you want to keep doing that. Then we're going to, once we get these cookie shaped out, you can do these in a number of ways. And she did this where she made the dough and you roll them again, and she pressed them with the glass, just like we did with the other ones. I made shortbreads where you can, you roll them out with a rolling pin until they're a flat, and then you can press with a cookie press. And Beth suggests you use a metal one that's been chilled, because that way the dough will come out quicker. It won't get gooey and stuck on your cookie press. Okay. There's a lot of really cool cookie stamps or cookie cutters. You can give in all different types of holiday shapes, fun ones, beautiful ones. So the shortbread cookie dough, you just can't go wrong. It's such a versatile thing. Melting chocolate. Now, of course, to get this chocolate melted, she took the 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. She had them in a mixing bowl, a glass bowl like this one, and she mixed the 1 tablespoon of shortening. But I've seen recipes where you can also use butter. Beth said you might even try using coconut oil to give it a little bit of flavor, which sounds kind of interesting. So you have your chocolate chips and you're going to microwave these, but she said you really have to be careful and watch this. You want to check them at 30 seconds. You want to check it at 45 seconds. And you're going to, it's going to look like they haven't even melted until you start stirring them. And then it's like, oh, they're starting to break up and it's starting to become more of a liquid fluid chocolate. But you got to be careful, because if you do this too much, it's going to seize up the chocolate, and the chocolate turns into a mess. So you don't want to overheat that. You got to be very careful. So I'm going to put this chocolate was all melted and all regular before we got started, but we're going to put this in our microwave we're going to go 20 seconds or something like that, because it was already at liquid temperature before we started. And since I've been standing here talking all this time, it got a little too firm to use. So I'm even going to just check it now. Yep. So there we go. You see it's very soft now. Okay, so let's go with that. Okay. So the chocolate, we melted it. It's ready to go. We've already made the dough. A dough for a shortbread cookie is very simple. A lot of people I know even just throw it all into a food processor and throw it all in there, and it bakes the dough right away. So once you make your dough, you're going to roll them into 1-inch balls again. And again, I just pinch the dough off and roll them. You can also use the trusty tool like Beth. You're going to place it on an ungreased cookie sheet, or you can use your parchment paper. You're going to put I don't have sugar here to dip this in. So I'm going to use your tip. If you put the cup in sugar first and then flatten them, it will come off very easily, okay? But here, I'm just doing this, just disregard. Okay, so you've got them flat, and they're gonna look like this after they're baked. Okay, here's a whole tray of these. Okay, and so now we're ready to decorate them, and that's the fun part. If you have kids or you're just doing it yourself, this is the fun part to get everybody involved in. And this is where this little tool comes in. Beth likes the silicone sheets. You can see these silicone pads that they sell in the stores. This is nice, she said, so when you take a cookie, you dip it in, and you just place it on there. It's a nice way to, and I'm just dipping it in. Can you see that okay, Catherine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you see it, and this on the silicone sheet, it will dry really nice and not make a big mess everywhere. So this is where you take your decorations. Now, I like to do a little colorful, so I'm gonna add my little sprinkles here. Or if you were gonna use nuts, that's when you would sprinkle your nuts on that side, or the candy cane, the crushed candy canes, you know, and then you end up with something like this, the finished product, okay? Some people just like that, and of course, you can have lots of fun. There's so many great sprinkles and, you know, cookie decorating things out there, so you can have a lot of fun with that. So that brings us to the end of all the cookies. So any questions tonight for any of these cookies tonight?
I'm not sure if we know the answer to this one, but Mimi asked what kind of shortening is used with the chocolate.
I don't know that one. You know, we're going to send that question to Beth. So if you want to send us your email, please send us the email, and we're going to have Beth respond to that one, because Beth is the one that uses the shortening. And this is a recipe she had for years and years and years. She doesn't even know where she got it from. So please send us your email, and we will send you the answer. Okay. Any other questions?
We just had a comment from Julie. Bravo. Great job, Janine and Catherine.
Oh.
From Mary. Great presentation, Janine. Good job.
Oh, good. You know, thank you for being with us tonight. You know, we're so sorry that Beth is not here. And I know she was so looking forward to sharing these with you, because she really has a great wealth of knowledge. But we love to bake too. We love the holiday seasons, and just, you know, it's a great time of year to connect to a tradition. I know one of my favorite things. I know, Catherine, you have your own favorite. I like to make arugula that my family loves. And this year I thought, you know what, I'm going to cut. I make like, I don't know, 7 or 8 different cookies, because I have a huge family. But this year things are going to be a little bit smaller. But I'm going to be making my arugula. I'll be making more arugula and less of other things. And I'm going to just package that up and send that off as gifts. So, I mean, they can be gifts, and they can, you know, there's a lot of association with the different things we have, the traditional foods we have. I know we make a nut roll that, you know, goes back through my family coming from the old country. You know, and we make new traditions. You know, there was always a tradition starts with the first time. So if you have never done this before, you can make your own tradition by starting with one of these cookie recipes or anything. So, and of course, we love the cookbook section of the library. We love looking at them. And so make sure you can, if you don't have any good recipes at home, you can look up some cookbooks through the library, get through them. We have some in stock still. You can get those for yourself. Any other questions?
Let me see. Yeah, I think that we've just gotten mostly just thank you, great job comments. I don't think we've got any other questions right now.
Okay, great. Well, you know, I hope you try some of these cookies. Let us know if you do too. You have our emails. Make a cookie, take a picture of it, send it back to us. We would love to see that. We would love to post that on our Facebook. So make a cookie. I love it. That's my challenge to you. Make one of these cookies, send it to the email that you got. Matt sent you out the email with the recipes, and take a picture of it and send us back. That would just make our day, and we'll share that with everybody else. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, I'm going to sign off for tonight, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. And please have a safe and healthy, happy, Merry Christmas. And we'll see you in the new year. Thank you. Good night.